These plates have been soaking in for about 2 hours, so it's time to start putting things back in place. So making sure that that washer's in place at the back there. Now, it starts with one friction pad, then one of these metal pads. All of the pads except for the final friction pad go in here, and the final one sits in there. Our last friction plate has got to sit on the outside. 1, 2, 3, 4 down the middle, and the 5th one on the edge. So we're just going to stick our little aluminium in there, and I don't know if you can see, but I've just tried to straighten them all up. Okay, this is going to be where it's difficult because the teeth have to match up. Alright, I changed my mind to do this. I'm going to take the whole basket out and line these up as best as I can. This is one thing I hadn't considered. The difficulty in lining these teeth up. I don't want to force anything. Okay, line it up with that hole there. I didn't consider this, that my generic plates may not fit. Whereas these ones fit right over it. So what's the difference? There is an almost imperceptible difference. But it means that my new plates don't fit. Therein lies the problem. I have got no choice but to use my old plates. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1. It should fit. It just barely, imperceptibly doesn't. 1, 2. I'm not happy about having to do this, but I don't have a lot of choice. There's a whole extra pad in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. It's one thing I didn't consider, actually, that my replacement kit came with too many pads, because guess what? Only 4 came out, and I tried to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in. Where will we be at with that? I think what displeases me is that I don't know if these are reusable. They're not deformed in any way. Okay, we're going to go rounded edge to the top. The thing about giving these a good wipe is you get a good look at them and see if there's any noticeable. I don't see why they wouldn't grip up, because the grip comes from the friction pads, not the steel plates in between. Still, I'll be annoyed if I have to order more from Honda. Okay, now this one goes up front like this. Okay, now this one, that's not right. There we go. In. No need to freak out. Washer. Okay, so don't do what Nick does. I'll say that again. Don't do what Nick does. There's absolutely no need. You should be doing a torque. I'm not doing more than that. That should be all it takes, because that's about how much I did to get it off. And it's already seated on there by a few. Here's the fun part. We've got a seat 1, 2, 3, and 4. Make sure that this bearing is seated. Now this is a tricky step. You've got to be careful that these springs don't get pinched behind the plate. Don't ask me how I know. Alright, so what we're going to do pretty much is wind these in by hand until all of the springs have taken up their seated position. I really do think that seating these springs has got to be perhaps the trickiest part of this whole process. You can keep going like this until they become tight enough to start turning the entire basket. Just 1, 2, 3, 4 at a time. That's tight. That's tight. And that's tight. Now, case in point, now that that starts to turn, we've got to use our sacrificial piece of metal, get it in there, now I'm going to say these don't need to be super tight, they just need to be snug. No tighter than that. That's all you need. Don't stick a screwdriver in there. Full disclosure, I did buy a spare gasket, but this one is entirely undamaged. So when putting this back on, line up the 2 dowels, okay? Make sure that this is tucked up and out of the way, as best as you're able to do anyway. So lining up, dowel hole to line up here, and the dowel hole to line up here. Easy does it. Now don't let go of the pressure here. Don't start to tighten these. All I'm doing is winding them in just until that point you can feel it biting. All right, now we need to be able to reattach this clutch cable, but you don't want to move this bar until the case is almost entirely done up. So don't worry about this yet. What we can do is we can get this little bracket in here, the one that was in the way when we put it all back on, and we can get that one nipped up. Now here's just a reminder that these do not need to be particularly tight. Now, before we get carried away putting the last bolt in, you want to get your clutch bracket. You remember the cord, the clutch cable needs to go through that gap. You may need to pull the cable down a bit, especially if you pushed it up out of the way. So there's a little dowel here to line up. Okay. I'm still not going to pull on this bar until the case has been tightened. Even if you lose track of where you are at with your fastening, you can feel the loose ones. And they don't need a massive amount of torque on there to seal that gasket. All right, that's it. That's a lot of them. Right, how to adjust a clutch cable. The idiot's guide. Right, that's the correct way to refit the clutch cable. Now, that's right where I want the clutch free play to be. So I'm going to get my 14mm and wind that down. All right. How can you tell that you've been working on a project for too long? Is when you forget to put the drain bolt back in. That is why we leave the drip tray under the bike. Or I suppose this exhaust could have used some anti-corrosion. Okay, I'm just wiping the case now because I don't want to think I've got drips where I haven't. Okay, that'll do. We can probably take up some more slack in that cable, I think. I don't think there's any adjustments I can make at this end. Yeah, look at that. That's the next problem. Looking. Well, it's not dripping, that's a good sign. Side stands down. I'll try and take it for a lap around the yard. Oh, this feels good. Feels good. Feels really good. Feels great actually. Right, all that's left to do is to clean up.